There was a time when I believed I understood everything about my faith. I was certain of my role in this world, of my duty to uphold honor and defend truth as I had been taught it. My childhood was shaped by rituals, prayers, and a heavy mantle of responsibility passed down from my family, especially my father, a man revered in our community for his unwavering devotion. From an early age, I internalized the message. My life was not my own. It belonged to something greater, something holy, something that demanded sacrifice. Growing up in a city like Damascus, I was immersed in a rhythm of faith. The sound of the adhan rising over the rooftops, the scent of cardamom in the air, and the quiet authority of the elders in the mosque. It was all part of a life that felt ancient and righteous. I was proud to be part of it, and I was proud to carry the burden my father placed on my shoulders. I did not question it. I didn't know I was allowed to, but something unexpected happened. A seed of doubt, a moment of peace in the middle of a confrontation. A voice, gentle and unfamiliar, echoed through the noise of war and anger. That moment didn't make sense to me then, but it clung to my soul. It haunted me. It challenged everything I thought I knew. This testimony is not a simple story of conversion or rebellion. It is a journey marked by fear, pain, abandonment, and a strange, persistent love I couldn't ignore. If you stay with me through these words, perhaps you'll understand what I've come to believe, that sometimes the most powerful transformations are born not out of argument but out of love, out of surrender, out of a whisper that refuses to be silenced. Let me take you back to where it all began. Before the questions, before the fire, before the dreams. This is my story, and perhaps in hearing it, you'll find part of yours. I was raised in a house where silence was rare and obedience was sacred. My father's voice carried weight, not only because he was my father, but because he was a man of God, a sheikh whose sermons stirred hearts and whose expectations pressed heavy on my shoulders. From the moment I could walk, I was taught to kneel. From the moment I could speak, I was taught to recite. And from the moment I could think, I was taught not to question. Faith was not something to explore. It was something to inherit. And I did. Devoutly, passionately, blindly. My days were filled with study, prayer, fasting, and the pursuit of becoming the defender my family expected. I remember sitting by the oil lamp, the Quran open on my lap, my father watching in silence. "You will lead," he would say, "or you will die with honor." Those words became my spine, my identity, my mission. I believed them. Even in childhood, I understood that there was no room for softness. Love was expressed through discipline, through correction, through sacrifice. My mother, though gentle, echoed the same purpose in her prayers. "Make him a shield," she would whisper as her hands rested on my head. "Let him bring victory or die for the truth." I didn't flinch at those words. I wore them like armor. I believed it was noble to burn for faith, and so I did. I devoured scripture, memorized hadiths, studied jurisprudence. I was respected by my peers and praised by elders. They said I was a rising star, a born leader. And when war came knocking, I didn't hesitate. I welcomed it like a rite of passage. But war doesn't just happen on battlefields. Sometimes it begins in the soul. And mine was about to ignite in ways I couldn't imagine. In 2003, as the world convulsed with conflict, I was 23 and burning with purpose. The invasion of Iraq was more than political to us. It was personal, spiritual, existential. The mosque was alive with outrage, sermons turned into battle cries, and our prayers were laced with fury. My father spoke with fire, calling us to defend the faith. And I listened. We formed a militia, young men with hearts full of rage and hands unfamiliar with mercy. We trained with stolen weapons, marched through markets with slogans of death, and planned our journey to the borders. I told my wife Fatima that I had no choice. She wept in silence as she packed my bag, our sons clinging to her legs. I kissed them goodbye and left to become the man I was always meant to be. Or so I thought. What I didn't know was that my greatest battle wouldn't be with the infidel, but with the truth. One afternoon, amid the routine of protest and patrol, I heard of a man speaking near the Umayyad Mosque, a Christian preacher, a foreign voice, a foreign message, standing in the heart of our sacred city. I felt fury rise like a tide. I rushed to the scene, megaphone in hand, brothers behind me, ready to silence the heretic. His name was Yusuf, an old man with silver hair and a calm face. He spoke of love, of enemies, of forgiveness. I expected resistance. Instead, I saw something different: peace. Not arrogance, not defiance, but peace. He looked at me as if he knew me, as if he saw something beneath my rage. And when he said my name, Tariq, justice is love, something inside me cracked. I shouted louder, quoted verses, accused him of everything I could think of, but he didn't flinch. And when he offered me his Bible saying, "Seek the truth," I took it. Not to read, to destroy, but it never burned. That Bible became a secret I couldn't part with. I hid it beneath my mattress, telling myself it was only so I could argue better, to know the enemy's lies. But something in me had shifted. I began to read it late at night when the house was quiet and the world was still. The words of Jesus were foreign, gentle, piercing, unsettling. Love your enemies. Turn the other cheek. Forgive. I had never heard such things, and I couldn't stop reading. But with every verse I felt more alone. I stumbled during prayers, my voice unsure. My wife noticed. She asked what was wrong. I lied. I told her I was tired. But the truth was, I was terrified. The battle I had trained for my entire life was happening now. Not with bullets, but with words that refused to leave me alone. Then came the dreams. Vivid, relentless, haunting. A forest of shadows. A man in white. Scarred hands and a voice that felt like water in the desert. "Follow me," he said, again and again. I woke in cold sweats, unsure if I was cursed or called. And when Fatima found the Bible, everything shattered. Her face was pale, her eyes full of betrayal. She begged me to burn it. I said I would. I lied. That night as she slept, I read again, and I wept. What was happening to me? What was I becoming? I prayed to Allah, asking for clarity, for strength, for direction. But heaven was silent. Only the dreams returned, each time clearer. The man drawing closer. My father would soon know. The militia would soon turn. And I stood on the edge of something terrifying. A truth I wasn't ready to embrace. I tried to keep my old life intact. I led the rallies, shouted the slogans, condemned the West. But my voice was hollow. My heart was not in it. My friend Nabil noticed. "You're not yourself," he said. And he was right. I was crumbling. Then came the rally outside the Christian school. Stones in hand, fire in the air. I threw the first rock, but when I heard a child cry inside, I froze. The line had been crossed. My anger had reached its limit. That night, I saw the man again in my dream, closer than ever, his eyes full of sorrow. The next morning, Fatima stood over me with the Bible in her hands. "I told my father," she said. "He's coming." My world collapsed. My family, my honor, my identity, all slipping through my fingers. But there was no going back. The truth was out, and the truth had changed me. My father arrived with thunder in his eyes. He didn't speak at first, just stood in the doorway, the Bible in his hands, its cover crumpled, his grip tight like it was filth. Fatima stood behind him, silent, her eyes swollen with tears. When he finally spoke, his voice was low but sharp, each word like a blade. "You've shamed us," he said. "This filth ends now." I tried to explain, to find words to express the war inside me, but he struck me before I could finish. "You're no son of mine," he spat, turning to Fatima. "Take the boys and go." She didn't hesitate. She gathered our sons, avoiding my eyes, and left without a word. The door slammed behind them, and I collapsed to the floor, crushed beneath the weight of what I had just lost. My family, my identity, my reason for everything, gone in an instant. All I had left was the echo of a voice from my dreams and the tattered pages of a book I wasn't supposed to read. That night, alone, I prayed, not the way I was taught, but the way my soul demanded. I didn't know who I was speaking to anymore. Allah? Jesus? The man in white from my dreams? I only knew I needed something greater than myself to hold me together. I begged, "Show me your truth." And the dream returned. This time the forest was darker, the shadows louder, accusing, taunting. Traitor, infidel. I ran through thorns and voices until I saw him, the man in white, closer than ever. His hands were scarred, his eyes filled with sorrow and love. "Follow me," he said again. When I awoke, I felt both peace and fear. I knew now who he was, Jesus, and that knowledge brought both light and danger. Morning came with more pounding at the door. My uncle and his men dragged me from my home. They burned my shop. They beat me. They called me apostate. I ran. I hid. I lost everything. And yet I could still hear that voice calling me forward. It was Nabal who came to me one last time. Bandaged, eyes heavy, he found me in a broken house at the edge of the city. "They're coming for you," he said. "You must leave." He pressed a pouch of coins into my hands and gave me a contact, a smuggler who could take me to Lebanon. I didn't argue. I had no strength left. I packed what I could: a few clothes, the Bible, and a scarf Fatima had left behind. As I stepped out into the night, Damascus, my home, my history, faded behind me. Every step forward was a funeral march for the life I once knew. The smuggler, Khalil, led me silently through the desert. We moved by moonlight, hiding from patrols, praying we wouldn't be caught. There were no guarantees, only risk, only faith. One night, a sandstorm swept over us. I whispered, "Jesus, protect me." And somehow, the wind calmed. I began to understand that even in the desert, I was not alone. Even in exile, I was being led. When we reached the Lebanese border, dawn was breaking. Mountains stretched before us, distant and unsure. Khalil pointed and said, "Beirut's that way. You're on your own now." He vanished into the dust. I walked alone, every step heavier than the last, until my legs gave out. That's when I met Miriam, a woman with a worn shawl and kind eyes, a Christian refugee who found me crumpled near the road. She didn't ask who I was or what I'd done. She simply said, "Come." She led me to a small shack, patched with tin and barely standing, but to me it was salvation. She gave me bread and water, and for the first time in days, I wept openly. She said nothing, just sat nearby and let me grieve. I was in Lebanon, 2004, a stranger, a fugitive, a broken man. But that shack became a sanctuary. It was not safety in the worldly sense, but it was peace. Fragile, flickering peace. I lay on the cold floor that night and whispered again, "Jesus, if you're with me, help me." I had nothing left to offer, only surrender. The days that followed were quiet but heavy. Miriam brought food, sat with me in silence, and once said, "You're not alone." I didn't believe her, not yet. My soul still carried the sting of Fatima's departure, my son's absence, my father's hatred. I kept the Bible hidden under a folded blanket, unsure if I still had the courage to open it. But I couldn't stop thinking of the dreams, the voice, the hand reaching through the darkness. One day, Miriam invited me to a gathering, a secret group of Christian refugees meeting in a basement. I resisted. "I'm not like you," I said. "You were," she answered gently. "But maybe now you're more like us than you know." I went hesitant. The basement was damp, lit by a single bulb. A dozen faces turned to me. Men and women scarred by war, united by faith. They prayed. Simple words, raw words, and something inside me stirred. A warmth, not certainty, but presence. It was the first time I felt truly seen, and it terrified me. At the next meeting, a man named Elias shared his story. How he escaped Aleppo, how he lost his daughter in a bombing. His voice broke, tears streamed, and for the first time I shared my own story. I spoke of my past, my anger, my dreams, the confrontation with Yusuf, and the destruction that followed. I expected judgment, but they nodded. Some cried, others embraced me. In their tears I found belonging, but that didn't make the nights easier. The silence in the shack was still filled with ghosts. I could hear Fatima's laughter in the wind, Isef's small voice calling for me, Ahmed's giggles around every corner. I missed them so deeply it hurt to breathe. I prayed for them every night. "Jesus, bring them back to me." But the silence continued, and still, I stayed. I stayed with the group. I stayed with the Word. I stayed with Jesus, because somewhere deep down, I had begun to believe that He was staying with me too. Weeks passed, then months. My beard grew wild. My hands grew calloused again as I found work hauling crates in the market. It wasn't much, but it gave me bread and a reason to move. The world outside still whispered refugee, still stared with suspicion, but I didn't care. I had something deeper now. The group became my family. We sang together, prayed together. Elias taught me scripture, his finger guiding me through verses I had once called blasphemy. Now they spoke to my soul. For God so loved the world. He read one night, and my heart cracked open. I remembered Fatima's face, the boys' laughter. I still missed them, but I no longer hated the pain. It had carved space in me for something greater. One evening, Miriam handed me a letter from Damascus. My hands shook. It was from Fatima. The words tore through me. Return to Islam, and we can be a family again. If not, don't come back. I wept. The choice was cruel, clear, but something in me had already chosen. I sat with the letter for hours, running my fingers over Fatima's handwriting. Every word was both a blade and a balm. The boys ask for you, she wrote. My father says you're dead to us. I imagined Ahmed's eyes searching the doorway, Isef asking when I'd come home. My hands trembled, my heart broke all over again. Return to Islam and regain everything I love, or remain where I was, faithful to this Jesus I barely knew, and lose them forever. It felt like a trap, like a punishment. I cried, not quietly, but with sobs that shook the walls of the shack. Miriam came to me, said nothing, and sat with her hand on my shoulder. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go back, but I knew I couldn't. I had touched something holy, and I couldn't unsee what I had seen. I prayed again that night, gripping Fatima's scarf, whispering, Jesus, I trust you, but I miss them. I didn't hear an answer, just the sound of my own heartbeat and the wind outside the shack. The group gathered that evening. I told them about the letter, about Fatima's words, the condition to return. Elias opened the Bible and read, The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. I nodded, but I couldn't feel it. My heart felt miles away. Still, they prayed for me, not with pity, but with power. I felt something in that room, strength that wasn't mine. I kept returning to that basement because I couldn't survive without it. We met twice a week, and slowly I found my voice again. I began to speak, not just about pain, but about peace. I told newcomers about my dreams, about the man in white with scarred hands. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they too had seen visions. We were a community of the broken, and in our brokenness, something beautiful was taking root. But no matter how strong the community became, my nights were still filled with silence, still haunted by the absence of Ahmed's giggle or the warmth of Fatima's embrace. One night I stood by the sea. Beirut's shore was quiet, the waves lapping like a soft whisper. I watched the horizon, imagining Damascus on the other side, picturing my boys asleep, their small chests rising and falling. I thought of the day I threw the Bible into my satchel, not knowing it would tear my life in two. Lord, I whispered, I give them to you. Keep them safe. I didn't know if he would answer. I didn't know if I'd ever see them again, but I had nothing left to do but hope. That night, I wrote a reply to Fatima. I love you. I love the boys, but I can't return to who I was. I've seen something I cannot unsee. I pray for you every day. May we meet again. I handed the letter to Miriam. It may never reach her, she warned. I nodded. Send it anyway. Some faith isn't about certainty. It's about choosing to trust when everything else says don't. And so I trusted, not in an outcome, but in the one who had called me by name. Months passed. My days settled into rhythm, work, prayer, ministry. I still missed my family with every fiber of my being, but I was beginning to heal. One day, a letter arrived from a peace forum in Beirut. They'd heard of me, of my testimony, and asked if I would share it publicly. I hesitated. My scars weren't just emotional. My body still bore bruises from Damascus, and my soul still flinched at the memory of being called apostate. But Miriam urged me. Your voice can heal, she said, and maybe she was right. The forum was packed. Christians, a few Muslims, even some Jews. I stood trembling. My hands shook as I gripped the microphone. But then I spoke. I was a jihadist, I began. I hated you. I cursed your names. But then Jesus came to me in dreams. He taught me to love. I told them everything. The market, the dreams, the pain. the loss. When I finished, the room was silent. Then came tears. Then came applause. People stood, weeping, and I wept with them. After the forum, an older Jewish man approached me. His eyes were red. "I lost family too," he said. "Your words, they touched me." He embraced me like a brother. One by one, others came. Survivors, refugees, widows. They placed their hands on my shoulders and told their stories. Stories of war, of loss, of hope. And in that moment, I saw something holy. The same Jesus who met me in my darkest hour was working in their wounds too. I was invited to speak again and again. Each time I felt lighter, not because the pain had gone, but because I had learned to carry it differently. But even in the applause, even in the peace, one absence remained. Fatima, Ahmed, Isef. Their faces were etched in every silence, in every prayer. I would sit by the shack's window at night, holding Fatima's scarf, reading unsent letters. I whispered their names, praying for them like a ritual. And though the ache remained, my faith held steady, thin, fragile, but alive. The ministry grew. We moved from a basement to a borrowed room, then to a larger gathering space. Refugees came, some curious, others desperate. I led prayers now. I read scripture with Elias. I taught what I had once hated. We saw small miracles, not flashy, but meaningful. Peace in broken hearts, hope in abandoned souls. One woman, Amina, brought her brother who hadn't spoken since a raid. I prayed for him. No healing came, but he smiled for the first time in months. That was miracle enough. Word spread. My name became known. And though I was still watched by those who hated me, I was no longer afraid, because I had already lost everything. And somehow, I had survived. One night, I sat with a new member, Samuel. His face was burned, his eyes hard. He'd lost his wife and child. "I can't forgive," he said. "I can't love them." I told him, I couldn't either. But Jesus changed me. He wept. I prayed over him. And I realized then, my pain had become my calling. I still wrote letters. They piled up in a box beside my bed. Pages filled with memories, with longing, with faith. I kept Fatima's scarf folded beside them. It still smelled faintly of jasmine and bread. I would hold it in the dark, whispering her name, praying for the boys. Sometimes I imagined what I would say if I saw them again. "I never stopped loving you. I never stopped being your father." But I knew that day might never come. And so I poured my story into these words, into these rooms, into these people. I shared not because I was whole, but because I was healing. I didn't have answers. I still grieved. I still wrestled. But I had found a light in the darkness. Jesus, the man in white. The one who found me when I was ready to destroy. The one who loved me when I couldn't love myself. I recorded my story so others might find what I found. And maybe, just maybe, someone I lost might hear it one day and remember that love never stops reaching. If you've come this far, thank you. Thank you for walking with me through every moment of loss, every cry in the dark, every fragile whisper of hope. This is not just my story, it is the story of many, of people torn between tradition and truth, between fear and freedom, between the voices of the past and the voice that calls from beyond the pain. I don't know where you are in your journey, but if you're searching, if your heart is aching for something real, then hear me. Jesus sees you. He hears you. And he is not far. If he could find me in the ashes of my life, he can meet you where you are right now. I spent years fighting, judging, burning in the name of religion, thinking I was defending truth. But truth doesn't need defense. It invites surrender. Jesus didn't force me to follow him. He waited. Through dreams, through scripture, through the silence. He never shouted. He simply called. And when I finally listened, everything changed. Not without pain, not without loss, but with a peace I had never known. If you're carrying anger, doubt, guilt, or fear, he can handle it. Bring it to him. You don't have to clean yourself up first. Just come as you are. That's where healing begins. If this testimony moved you, I want to invite you to take the next step. Subscribe to this channel, not just to support me, but to walk this journey with others who are searching for the same light. Follow the one who gave me new life. Follow Jesus. Leave a comment below if this story spoke to your heart. Tell me your story. Tell me your struggle. Let's build a space where honesty meets hope, where no one has to walk alone. Share this video with someone you know is questioning, doubting, or in pain. It might be the invitation they've been waiting for. This channel isn't just a platform, it's a place of healing, a place of truth. I'll be sharing more stories, more moments from the journey, both mine and others. And I want you with me. Let's walk this path together. I promise you, you're not alone. There are others just like you, just like me, who are searching for something deeper than dogma, something more enduring than ritual, something that doesn't break when the world does. That something is Jesus, and He's calling. So again, subscribe. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. And more than that, open your heart. Ask the question. Whisper the prayer. You might be surprised who answers. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the first step. I did, and it cost me everything. But I would do it again, because what I gained in Him is worth more than anything I lost. To those who stayed, who listened, who felt something stir in their hearts, I see you, and I'm praying for you. Wherever you are in the world, whatever faith you come from, whatever pain you carry, you matter. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are deeply, eternally loved. If you want to follow Jesus, if you want to talk, if you need prayer, reach out. This is more than a video. It's a beginning. Your beginning. Until next time, stay strong, stay honest, stay open. My name is Tariq, and I'm just a man who lost everything to find the only thing that truly matters. I love you, and I can't wait to walk with you again.